you've heard of quarks, but who understands what they're talking about? And that's kind of what, when we talk about our energy system and our energy fields and even our chakras, we talk about them as though they exist in this physical world, and they don't. And so when you have the big picture of how it all fits together, it really opens up new dimension of understanding. And it even to the point where if you don't know what you don't know that you don't know it. And now that you know just a little tiny bit, now you have questions you can ask about what you don't know. That's the difference we're trying to make here. That's pretty cool. Throughout all of space-time is energy. And this energy is, we think of this energy as what gives rise to life on this planet. It gives rise to planets, right? So it's energy that gives rise to mass. And we don't really know where all of this energy comes from. And there are different names for it. But when we talk about the hara, which is how the person comes into existence, we think of this energy, this bubble of energy, this mass of undiagnosed energy that's floating around out there that has to give rise to us as physical beings. We know that the physical expression of us is the minor expression of us, that there's more to us than just the physical body. But how do we get here? What gives rise to that out of this mass of potential? So what we talk about, and there's a lot more talk about this from a spiritual perspective, because they focus on your connection to the divine, your connection to God, or all that is, something greater than us that calls the shots. But we have to come out of that. We have to, be individualized somehow. It's really hard to keep track of this if you're thinking of this as being the physical, but all of this exists before the physical exists. So as we come out of all that is, it's basically like if you take this mass in the universe and you imagine it as a mirror, and it has no edges. It's just this mirror, right? Which is all one thing. It has one component that makes it up, glass. And you take this glass and you tip it over, you break it. Then this glass shatters into 18 million pieces, and each piece of it is part of the whole, but it identifies as its own shape, its own depth, its own identity, right? The little thing, the part of the whole that little piece of glass can reflect in the world. That's this individuation point. That's the point at which each of us on the soul level go from I am part of the whole to I exist as an individual, the universal I am. And the only way to know the I when you are part of the whole is to separate. So that's that mirror that has shattered into different pieces. Here's how I talk about it have talked about it in classes. At the Newtonian level, science said, because it was on the front page of a Time magazine, it said God is dead, basically. And their philosophy at this range of the energy spectrum, this is back in the 40s, 30s, was if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. So don't even bother making a postulate, because we have to, seeing is believing is basically what Time magazine said. Seeing is believing, therefore God is dead. Okay. So anything that exists beyond our ability to see it, measure it, move it, drop it, change it with our rules doesn't exist. After Einstein, who was really leading edge in the 50s, he died in the 50s. And leading edge, he was dangling, there's more beyond this. We don't know what, and we don't know how to measure it yet, but here's an idea. So as we started to create more equations and understanding and even equipment to measure faster frequencies of energy in what was called the quantum range, then what happened was we started to be able to measure things that we couldn't see. We started being able to measure things faster than we could see them move. So that became part of this quantum range, which included the speed of light, because that's what Einstein said. Once we get to this speed of light, and nothing can go faster than the speed of light, now we can understand this. So that's what led to this whole middle ground here. in the early 80s, Time magazine came out with a front page that said Science Finds God. And basically what they had done at that point is they had created enough diagnostic equipment and understanding based on mathematics to say, just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And oh, by the way, seeing is believing. So now we know intention creates outcome. So if I expect to see an electron jump from this atom to this atom, even though I don't actually see it happen, I can measure it before and after, and now I know it did that. It in fact did that. And to the point where the intention of the researcher can create outcome. So we have to account for it when we set up a research project. So that's the quantum range. Now we're up here into this subtle range, which is things that happen above the speed of light. And in fact, we know that things exist beyond the speed of light, and we can't yet measure it. And this is infinity up here on this end of the spectrum. This is things that we are still kind of postulating, but we don't know if it happens that way or not. This is the part where the equation that says a node where a wave crosses a line, that node is mathematically equal to 0, and we know that it's not true. So now we're starting to look at what happens to these extraneous values that still exist when it goes from positive to negative. So we're going beyond the expected. And I think it's kind of interesting to understand wave mechanics in terms of how our energy functions. If we look at the hara as a standing wave, so we've got an end point here and an end point. You know, the Earth is an end point and the ID point is an end point. This shows waves moving in two different directions. And again, we have the lambda, the measurement from the height of one wave to the other. We could have it down here as well. One's positive, one's negative. And then these nodes, where these areas of different identity, like distinct frequencies that come out of the whole, these are nodes where it's mathematically supposedly equivalent to 0. We know there are other functions there. As we move from highest vibration to physical planet, this energy diminishes. It has to diminish for us to manifest as physical. At the nodes, the energy disappears, but where does it go? So what we're saying here is that these nodes, these places along this system of distinct energy vibration, siphon energy out to a lower system to give rise to a lower frequency system, at which we're saying at these nodes the energy drops down and then manifests as the chakra system, what we've identified as a chakra system. So that's why people say that it's like we go through transformers to bring our energy down out of the all that is. I'll give you an example of this. If you see these high tension wires carrying energy to your community from somewhere, a dam, a power plant, that frequency in those high tension wires they're called high tension because it's so high you can hear them popping and snapping, and it moves as waves. It's not constant. It actually radiates as waves through those wires. And so what happens is it has to come into a substation in your community where it goes through transformers and then gets fed out on feed lines to your neighborhood. So it would go through a transformer in your town to a transformer on a pole for your community, right? And each time it goes through a transformer, it's stepping down the energy. And that's what this system does. If we know that it's very, very high and vital up at source, but we've got to support a physical existence, we have to tap that or ramp down that energy somehow. And our systems tend to do that for us effortlessly. So at these nodes, it ramps down the energy. That excess energy that's flowing in that system starts to siphon out at the nodes and gives rise to the chakra system. So again, at the chakras, these chakras act as nodes in this system as well. And that excess energy that drops out of this system from top to bottom then gives rise to the meridian system, which is a much slower, denser flow of energy. And then what happens is the nodes in the meridian system also ramp down the energy, and as it drops beneath the speed of light, we appear as mass on the physical plane. So this is the slowest, densest energy system, and its focus is the body systems and the organs. And then we connect to this matrix. Here's space, here's empty space. And then we have this intention that we are going to manifest on this planet for lesson, right? So just the thought, I am going to manifest separate from the whole, the matrix opens up in this plane of potential and space. And now within this matrix, which is like a bubble in the space-time continuum, now the hara can start to manifest. The matrix, if you think of each of these these lines, this energy grid work around this matrix that opens up, that touches the space-time continuum, touches all that is, but it's our bubble within which we can support life. But the planet also has a matrix, so all physical life has matrix that touches the other space-time continuum matrix. So all things are one. So this is all of it together. First the matrix opens up, then the hara. Now the chakras manifest, and then the meridians. So we have the matrix, and then what happens here is that's the first thing that manifests. And within that, the hara, which gives it direction, then ideas, then application. And then once this whole thing drops beneath the speed of light, it's able to manifest in the physical world as mass. And at that individuation point, we have choice, because we're on a free will planet, and because we are imbued with a soul or a piece of the whole, we get to choose on some level that we are not aware of the dimensions of it, but we are able to choose that I exist as the I, the me, the I am, and we don't have a lot of knowledge about what that is, because this is so close to potential, it's almost just potential. But we get to carry into this lifetime predetermined things, qualities, experiences, karma, patterns, lessons, things that we hope to learn our soul in this individual lifetime. Now, we don't know if that's me, I, my, mine, or if that's me as part of this soul group that I identify with, or me as this generational DNA that I am carrying. We don't really know how to identify that from a scientific diagnostic perspective, but we know it's something's happening from the all to the I. And that's how I envision it, is that, whether it's we look in a big Sears catalog and we say, I'm going to have blonde hair and blue eyes, or I'm going to, have this issue around anger to heal in this lifetime. I don't know how we choose it, but I do believe that we are predetermined with certain qualities and lessons before we get here. The individuation point, this is where we can access all of those overlays, whether it's DNA, generational DNA, whether it's lessons, patterning, whether it's soul identity or soul groups. This seems to be the place where, when working as an energy practitioner, we start to touch on the whole through the individual identity. It's structured like a Merkaba. A Merkaba is two overlapping pyramids with the points going in opposite directions. Mm-hmm. And a Merkaba, the definition of a Merkaba is the transport vehicle of human consciousness. And so if that's in fact what happens there, then the structure that's identified around that, which is grid work, right? It holds the vibration for the expression of that individual. So I think it's a way to slow down and speed up energy. So that's how this acts in a way. I mean, I'm talking real macro here, but this is the way in which I think what becomes source, which is total potential in terms of energy, how it starts to lower to give rise to who we ultimately think we are as physical beings. When it then comes into the soul seat, this is where we kind of culminate and start bringing through our heart's desire and our soul's purpose. And it's called the soul seat because it's the seat of the soul. It's where we access that driving force for this individual life. The individuation point, roughly related to the physical body, is approximately an arm's length or so above the body. It could be a lifetime above the body. How am I supposed to know for sure? Because we're working into a system here that's so high vibration, we have not been able to measure it. But this is so high vibration, and it's so macro compared to what we're really looking at. This is the stuff of, what creates a universe? How does something come into mass in the universe at large? And we can't really measure that well right now. Mm-hmm. So again, it's kind of a guess, but the same with the Dantian. We roughly relate it to the lower abdomen. We roughly relate the soul seat to the upper chest area. Because it exists before the physical body exists, it's not really dissectable. I've worked with these individual systems to understand them, to be able to diagnose and treat them. But when I look at the energetics of what this system does, because it comes out of this full potential, I see it as the bridge. This is like the stairway to heaven. The Hara is the stairway to heaven. And I would say that the heaven that we are seeking, for our part of it is held by the matrix. But really, it's when we dissolve into all again. And, do I believe in heaven as it's taught by the church? No, I don't. I think heaven is rejoining all that is, stepping back into our full potential and awareness, becoming light. So where that happens, I can't tell you exactly, but it feels to me that this stairway of the Hara system is the closest to getting us there as energy practitioners. This is the system every practitioner should know about, and very few do. What I've discovered, especially in starting to work with the Hara, is that we are always spiritual. We can't become more spiritual. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So if we're always spiritual, then what's happening to your physical life when you've cut off half of it and you've said, I'm only going to focus on being spiritual? In fact, the history of healing is one that says our job is to spend all of our time and energy to become spiritual. Well, that's flawed thinking in my experience, because we're here on this physical planet to have a physical experience. So there must be a reason. If all you're doing is living in this half of your body, the upper half of your body, then you're not supporting life on this planet. What comes first, the planet or us? We're a team. We work together. And so if you're only living in your spiritual life, in your spiritual self, we have to be losing out on something. What happens is you've lost your ability to ground your spirit in the physical world, which changes physicality. So this system only really functions fully when it's anchored or grounded on the physical planet. And the reason is that if we are to become from energy, if we are to manifest as a physical body, we need physical support for that. And the physical planet is the bed that we lie in. As we stand on the physical planet, there is a place beneath the surface of the planet that's called the Earth Chakra. But it's a temporary grounding. And most people ground there, and that's a placement. So if you pick up and move, you are breaking this connection. So if you're not grounded in your core, then you're constantly regrounding to support your physical body in its expression here. And this is a stabilizing factor. and it's very helpful to have. But I've only recently started focusing on this, because what I do is I take people to the very center of the planet, which is called the Earth Crystal. And it's actually the heart of Mother Earth. And the reason I focus on this one is because if you're grounded to the Earth Crystal, then no matter where you go on the surface of the planet, you are constantly grounded. This obviously stabilizes this. If you're grounded to both, you're very stable. True grounding is to this center here. Once a hara is grounded, what comes through is this power. This is a power based on our physicality that we don't have access to in the straight physical world. We don't have the power to create physical objects. We don't have the power. We don't have a base for the slow frequency that it takes to express as physical in just the spiritual. So what we're actually losing out on by focusing only on our spiritual experience is we're losing out on the whole reason we came here to have a physical experience. And this power can only be accessed this way. This is the power of heaven on earth. This is what you get by being fully grounded here. And I think that's what people traditionally have missed out on. You know, it's hard to be here. It's a slog to be here day to day and to make things work and to live in nature and to deal with danger. But it costs you, but the cost is not too great. The cost is such potential that it's worth doing. And if it weren't worth doing, we wouldn't have stood in line to be here. And when we get caught up in this small human lifetime, I think we lose sight of the fact that this is temporary. You know, we buy into time rather than letting time be our guarantee that it's not always going to be like this. I think there is a part of us before this individuation point, or within this individuation point, there is a part of us that is wiser, smarter, sees all, does all, knows all, can, manifest all. There is this potential that we hold that as a physical being we lose sight of. Mm-hmm. And when we lose sight of that potential, we get caught up in, this is where the chakras can really get compromised, and we get caught up in the issues or the lessons, right? The chakra system is very important because it's the issues. It's the place where we truly become able to be human. We have 3 chakras above the heart chakra: the crown, the brow, the throat. And we have the heart chakra. Then we have 3 below the heart chakra: the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. The soul seat feeds energy to the heart and throat. And the individuation feeds to the brow and crown. What we learn in energy medicine is that the lower 3 chakras, and if you relate it to the lower hara, which is more physicality, the lower 3 chakras are fueled by the dantian, which is really strong with energy coming up from the earth, right? Our feet touch the earth. Mm-hmm. We walk on the earth. So the lower 3 chakras are more concentrated with living in a physical world, with physicality. We call the heart the transformer. We say it transforms the lower, denser, more physical-based energies and transforms them into the upper, more spiritual vibrations or identities. And each of the chakras has issues related to it. The lower chakras are more about survival. The upper chakras are more about spiritual well-being, spiritual bliss, your place in the greater whole. And all of that is important to us. So if we look at the physical world and we say science is what tells us about the physical world, and then we look at the upper chakras or the spiritual world, we need to have both of those to function well. So the heart's pretty important. And, we can live in the physical world, we can barely survive. But when we have enough of our survival in place, it's then we have the freedom to really reach and embrace more spiritual. So we need to get this survival on the planet piece down. We need to understand our emotional wounds, where our blocks are that keep this flow from being strong. We need to understand how we get in our own way mentally, how we have doing as a focus instead of being. And once these lower 3 chakras are in a place of homeostasis, now we can really get the value of running those greater awarenesses through the heart chakra and embracing more of our spiritual selves. Where's our power to heal? Where is our life force? This is our life force right here, the heart. This is our life force. Why? Because from that point upward, we exist no matter what. We exist in the spirit from the heart upward, no matter if we're in a physical body on earth or elsewhere. And so the heart is hurting. The heart is saying, I can't survive on that planet. You know, my lower 3 chakras, they're not getting what they need. So my heart is hurting. And what I said about being grounded is how we access this level of power that we don't have any other way. That's why we have to do it in the physical. We cannot vacate. We cannot cut and run. We have to access our power to create an environment we want, that's supportive of life we want. So here's something that's happened. I'll just relate it to what's going on right now on the planet. We have all these people really, really upset about what our government is doing or not doing, and feeling hopeless, and feeling like everything's gone wrong, like everything they believe in is being dissolved, like they don't know what the future will be. We have people not having children because they don't know what planet their kids are going to have, you know, and people are very upset about this, and it's easy to get caught up in it. It's very easy to get caught up in it. Well, in a meditation, I was like, what the hell? What is going on here? You know, we've had the harmonic convergence, you know, where we all have supposedly been polled and said, yes, we want more consciousness on the planet. We've had the 60s where we woke up a generation, right? And then we all promptly went back to sleep again. And now we're in all of this chaos, and we seem to be fighting the same lessons: women's rights, against prejudice, against, you know, all of this stuff. And I said, why? What is going on? And Spirit said to me, you cannot heal what is hidden. Mm-hmm. You cannot heal what is hidden, what is in the dark. And the only way to heal it is to bring it out into the light of day. And if Trump has done anything, he has certainly brought out into the light of day all of those things we thought were gone. We thought prejudice was gone. We thought sexism was gone. We thought that corporate greed was gone with the bank failures a few years ago. We thought this stuff was gone. And Spirit said, really? Really? You're on a free will planet. You really think this stuff has disappeared? And it's being used to wake us up. And Spirit says, we've got this. And I have to sit back and say, there is part of me that knows the plan. There is part of me that is working the plan that I don't have access to, and I'm going to have to trust. Because this part of me is not the part in charge. And that's what I think we get caught up in the chakra system, is we get caught up in where the blockages are, where our issues are really dense. And when our dense issues, especially in solar plexus, start rearing their ugly head, it's like, I should be in charge. I've got to change this. I've got to fight this. I've got to, I've got to make this disappear. I've got to work with this somehow. And we over-empower this physical part of us with qualities that are not ours to control. And we have to step back and say, I'm a conduit. I can be the clearest I can be. I can align with awareness, with truth. We cannot hide our head in the sand because we are anchored on this planet and we contribute to the overall energy. Every person that stands awake on this planet helps wake up someone asleep. But our planet is dying. Our society is dying. And if we look around, we can't ignore that. We're probably not the smartest beings on this planet, but we're certainly the ones with the biggest capacity to destroy everyone. And we seem to be doing it as quickly as we can. So if we don't wake up in this process, we know where it's going. We know where it's going. And if other beings show up to save us from ourselves, we got some really tough lessons coming. So for each of us that stands awake on the planet, we create more potential for life on this planet. But we have to wake up, and we're not in charge. So it gives me some peace to know that it's not on my shoulders to save this planet, and yet I can do my part. And that's the thing where we have to balance between my truth has to be everybody's truth, or my truth and what I can step into is contributing to the whole. And I think we have to go that way. We have to see that what we can do contributes to the whole. Otherwise, we tend to feel really powerless. We feel hopeless. Mm-hmm. Because I may be recycling my ass off, but my neighbor is like spraying Roundup on his yard. How is it that I'm going to feel like I'm doing my part when I see him destroying everything I do? Every person does their part in their own way. The point is that you have to wake up and do your part. So we can't stick our head in the sand. We have to be part of community. And I think the code word for this year or these few years is community. We need to build community. We need to be part of a community. We can't be community by building walls and separating ourselves from other people that have lessons that aren't ours. Because it's a free will planet, all those lessons count. And so we need to branch out. You know, who was it that said, I'm trying to remember, was it Mark Twain or somebody said that to combat ignorance, you must travel. You know, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to meet other people. You have to see that you're not alone in this process. And, you know, we're not alone in this process. We're all doing the same things energetically. I've heard over many, many years, you know, when you're ready, the teacher shows up. But I've also gone looking for direction, for coaching, for mentoring. And everybody says to me, the teacher is within. I want to strangle them, you know, because I'm looking for help. And I identify with that person out there that's looking for a hand up, looking for someone to say, I'll help you get there. But the bottom line is, it's inside you. It's inside every single person. If you truly embraced that you were crystallized starlight, that you were slowed down consciousness, that you were enlightened at a level you weren't able to see, you would have the power, you would have the support, you would know you're being heard. You would know that they're lined up to support you, all those disembodied consciousness that is here rooting for you to learn this lesson. You're not alone. The best kind of community support we can have is to have that mentor, to have that shaman, to have that teacher, to have that. I mean, the day of the guru and shaman is dead. My word is not gospel over anybody else's. However, I've been in practice for almost 25 years, and I have a background in psychotherapy. And I'm an empath and a type of person that wants to know why. I've got that scientific brain. So if my way of looking at something can distill down all of the things that you need to be aware of or to consider in a situation, and in giving you the cracked nut instead of the whole nut, is going to be helpful for you as a practitioner. That's my role. I'm happy to do that. But it also has to mimic the ethics of a one-on-one relationship between practitioner and client, or between teacher and student, or between mentor and mentee. And so that's why we hammer these things in these classes, and we role play, and we share examples, and we have our work reviewed, and we work with a mentor because we need coaching. Not everybody has, there's so many different skill sets that you can bring to this line of work. And not one is better than another. You give me a nurse, I don't have to teach her how to work with a person or how to be observant of what's happening with the human body or with drug interactions. But I might have to teach them about energy. I might have to teach them to be present. I might have to teach them to let go of judgment. And I might have to teach them how to be observant of energy and how to do self-care. You know, but you give me someone that has no medical background, I'm going to have to work harder to teach them structure of documentation and a framework of ethics and a client's bill of rights, you know, which comes natural to someone in a healthcare environment. I might have to teach them about confidentiality, which is second nature in our current standards in healthcare. So, you know, it doesn't make one a better practitioner than the other. It just says one has more skills in this area and we need to develop this other area and vice versa. As energy beings, whenever we interact with someone else, we're blending energies. So there's a wisdom in our energy body about what's going on, not just with us, but with other people that we are interacting with all the time that is not conscious to us. And that's why we practice centering, grounding, and becoming neutral. And that's, again, why we hammer self-care. Be the clearest vessel and vehicle that you can be. Hold that framework of ethics. Honor the autonomy of the other person. You know, just because I know something doesn't mean I need to tell the client I know something. Sometimes it's symbolic. If I don't know, truth is only truth if it's verified by the client. So if I get information about you, I'm not going to put it on your documentation form unless it's verified by you. And if I'm not in a position to verify it with you, it's not going on your documentation form. And the reason is because that's a legal record and you're entitled to a copy of it. And how would you feel if I put information on your documentation form that you didn't verify? That's a terrible breach. It's a very huge undermine of the ability to keep your own secrets and share only what you want to share. And so this is a hard thing to teach practitioners because we all want to be helpful, right? We've got a lot of women in this field, so we're all trying to nurture and be helpful, and many times that is a pattern of rescuing. So if I'm going to rescue you from your pain, and if I feel at all insecure or powerless in the practitioner role, I'm going to jump at wherever I think I can be more powerful. I have information I wasn't told. That makes me powerful, right? So these are real signs that someone is not doing self-care, not doing their personal growth work. And we spend a lot of time building a framework of ethics and professionalism around the field. I had a client, this is a story, I had a client that was referred to me by another practitioner. This client had her second diagnosis of breast cancer. She had a young adult daughter. I think she was in her 18, 19, 20-year-old. And she had gone through this breast cancer process with her daughter when she was younger. I don't know if it had been 10 years. I don't remember the time frame, but she had been through surgery and radiation and chemo. And she had been in remission or cancer-free for a period of time. And now she's just gotten a second diagnosis. And the practitioner that she saw this was in Australia, and it was the local esoteric healer. Very gifted healer that I knew through my community while I was there. And she called me and told me she was referring this client, and she told me that she told this client that she couldn't work with her if she didn't follow her doctor's orders, and that I was her second opinion. And I said, okay. So the woman came to me and she basically told me the same story, and that she didn't want to go the route she had gone before in her healing process. That here was her whole motivation. I don't want to put my daughter through that again. And I said to her, I hear you. I hear the pain that you've gone through. I hear that you have witnessed pain that your daughter has gone through. And I said, here's the thing. I believe in instantaneous healing. I've seen it happen. But that doesn't happen outside of the framework of your own energy. And I said, if you believe that the only way that you are going to heal this cancer is through surgery and chemo and radiation, then no matter what I believe or what I do, it's not going to work for you. So you have a choice here to actually go within and ask yourself, what do I know is my path to healing? And she took a moment, she thought about it, and she said, I know that my path to healing is surgery and chemo and radiation. And I said, when you decide what to do, I will be here to support you. And I never saw her again. I really do not know what she chose, but I truly do believe that our soul holds our answers and our wisdom. And we look outside of ourselves for the information, which is not possible. What we need to do is look outside of ourselves for community, for support, for someone who can hold the space for us to go within and find our truth and can hear and witness our truth when we find it. That's where we need people, not the guru. The human self says, well, if you're not an odd child, if you weren't born under the full moon, if you don't show signs of these otherworldly gifts, you can't do this. You can't learn to do this work. You can't do this work. You're not called to do this work. And none of that is true. You can learn to do this work. You can learn to do what I'm doing. You don't have to be extremely intuitive. You don't have to be empathic. You don't have to be highly intelligent. You have to have a heart for it. You have to have the desire to walk the path like a shaman would take a novice through that process of growth. But the more you are in the energy, the more you commit to this path, the more intuitive you actually become. Because once you're embracing and observing and feeling the energies that you're working with, you can't help but see, feel, know, taste, hear more of that aspect of yourself and the world around you. So it not only is a perfect personal path, which is why I chose it. I didn't plan to teach. I didn't plan to be a practitioner. I never planned to be at the top of this field, which I would admit I am. I did it for my own personal growth. I did it to have someone help me, guide me, give me a community to where this was okay. And in that process, I found within myself the space to hold for someone else.